All right, today we're talking about Geoffrey Chaucer. Now, you probably remember that name from high school English class, right? But we're going to go way beyond the textbook because his story is genuinely fascinating. We're going to figure out how one guy, living in one of the most chaotic centuries ever, didn't just write a bestseller, he basically laid the groundwork for the entire English language we speak today.
I know, it sounds like the beginning of a really weird joke. But seriously, this is the question at the heart of it all. The answer is this incredible story that connects a time of complete and utter crisis with the spark of literary genius that would change absolutely everything.
So, to set the scene, let me just throw a number at you. 34 million. That is the estimated number of people in Europe who died during the Black Death. This wasn't just some historical event happening in the background of Chaucer's life. This was a literally apocalyptic event that tore the seams of his entire world apart.
So yeah, let's start right there. Because to really get Chaucer, you first have to understand the absolutely insane world he was born into. This was a time when all the old medieval certainties were just collapsing, and something totally new and kind of modern was trying to be born out of the chaos.
I mean, just look at this timeline for a second. Chaucer lived through all of this. The Black Death, which wiped out almost half the population, the 100 Years' War with France, which felt like it would never, ever end, and then the Peasants Revolt, where everyday people rose up in a violent rebellion. So yeah, not exactly a chill time to be alive. So what does all that add up to? It means that 14th century England was just in a constant state of turmoil. The old feudal system was breaking down, brand new social classes were starting to climb the ladder, and people were beginning to question, well, everything, especially the church and the nobility. The old rules were crumbling, and everything was up for grabs.
Now, all this social chaos created a huge language divide. You see, the people in power spoke French and Latin. The royal court, the laws, the church, any serious literature, it was all in these elite languages. And English? Well, English was the language of the common folk. It was seen as kind of crude, a local dialect, definitely not a language for high art.
Which brings us right to our guy, Chaucer. Now, it's so easy to picture him as some dusty old scholar, scribbling away in a library somewhere. But you have to get that image out of your head. It could not be further from the truth. This guy was deeply, and I mean deeply, involved in the messy real world around him.
And just look at his resume. It's incredible. He wasn't some high-born noble. He was the son of a wine merchant who hustled his way up. He was a page in a fancy household, a soldier in France, where he actually got captured and ransomed. Then he was a diplomat, a top government official in London, and even a member of parliament. So you see, these weren't just jobs to pay the bills. This was like an all-access backstage pass to every single level of society. He was chatting with nobles one day and merchants the next. He saw how the world really worked, from the inside out. And you can bet he was taking mental notes the entire time. All those details that make his writing feel so alive, they came from his life.
Okay, so let's get to his masterpiece, the Canterbury Tales, because this is where everything we've talked about, his life, the crazy times he lived in, it all comes together. This book wasn't just a bunch of stories. It was a perfect snapshot of an England that was changing forever.
And the idea behind it is just, it's genius because it's so simple. You get a whole bunch of different people from all walks of life who meet up at an inn. They're all heading to the same place on a pilgrimage to Canterbury. And to pass the time, they decide to have a storytelling contest. It's basically a medieval road trip. And that simple frame is what allowed him to do something totally revolutionary.
Now, to get why this was so revolutionary, you have to know how society was supposed to work back then. Officially, everyone was sorted into one of these three little boxes, called estates. You had the church, who prayed, the nobility, who fought, and the peasants, who worked. That was it. A very neat, very rigid structure.
But, and this is Chaucer's genius right here, he knew that real life is always way messier than that. His characters don't fit neatly into those boxes. They are the messy, vibrant, complicated reality of a world in motion, full of people with their own ambitions that just defy those simple labels.
For a perfect example, just look at two of his most famous characters. On one hand, you have the knight. He's this perfect, idealized symbol of the old world, the age of chivalry. And on the other hand, you have the wife of Bath. And wow, she's a businesswoman, been married 5 times, she's outspoken, she's assertive, she is the new world, kicking the door down.
So this whole contest idea wasn't just a fun gimmick. It was the perfect engine for the book. It lets every single character tell a story that fits their personality, their job, their view of the world, and what you end up with is this incredible, colorful mosaic of medieval life, full of humor and drama and some really sharp commentary.
So, why should we care? Why does all this matter today? Well, let's talk about Chaucer's biggest legacy, which is nothing less than changing the game for the English language itself.
Believe it or not, the most radical thing Chaucer ever did was simply choose what language to write in. Think about it. He could have written his masterpiece in French or Latin, the serious, respectable languages of the time. But instead, he chose Middle English. And this wasn't just some sentimental move, it was a brilliant one. He knew there was a whole new group of people, a rising merchant class, who could read English, and he wrote for them.
There's this quote from the poet James Russell Lowell that just nails it perfectly. He found English a dialect and left it a language. Just think about that for a second. He took the everyday speech of the common person and proved that it could be beautiful, that it could be powerful, that it could be art. He basically put English on the map. And because of this, he's earned some pretty epic titles over the years. They call him the father of English poetry. Makes sense. They call him the morning star of the Renaissance because he was writing about complex, individual human beings long before that became the hot new thing. In short, he was one of the first truly modern writers.
And you can really see that modernity in his characters. I mean, sure, they're wearing medieval clothes and talking about pilgrimages, but their personalities, their ambitions, their little vanities, their hopes, their flaws, oh yeah, we recognize those. They feel so real because they capture something that's fundamentally human, something that never changes.
Which leaves us with this one last big thought. Chaucer's characters are over 600 years old. The world they lived in is completely gone. So how is it that when we read about the loudmouth miller, or the ambitious wife of Bath, or the con artist Pardoner, we can still see people we know in them? We can recognize them in our own lives today. That, right there, that's the enduring magic of Chaucer.